I can do the impossible. Only if you believe who specializes in doing big things. I can do the impossible. Anything that you need, just get your eyes off the things that you see. Heck, I can do the impossible.
Hello. My name is Robbie. On here, I'm Templar Knight. For everyone who believes in God but doesn't attend church, they've got a story why. But it is said that whenever two or more gather in His name, that He is there. So this is church. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Tonight, we are continuing our series about the impossible. Our series about God's miracles. And as I came up and was trying to figure out different categories for all of the different types of miracles, tonight I decided we were going to talk about the magic tricks. The times that God controlled something. You know, last week we talked about creation, when He made stuff. Tonight we're going to talk about when He controlled things. And I grew up, I've seen magic tricks anyway. We used to have this talent show at our church growing up every year, and there was this guy who had the cheesiest magic tricks ever. I think it was supposed to be comedy, because it was just so silly. He would get up there and he would do his little cheesy music, and he'd do these little lame jokes. He'd have the and it was so silly, and you just sit there and laughed because it was his magic show, and it was so dumb. But we got to see that, and that was my first experience with magic tricks. And then I grew up and I got to learn about Harry Potter and the magic they do in those shows and with their wands and all their little things. And I like Harry Potter. I like Harry Potter a lot. Heck, within arm's reach of my computer, I have my own little cheesy magic wand that I did not mean to bring out tonight. But I made this out of copper pipe because I like copper pipe. And I made this because I thought it was an interesting idea. How do I know magic truly doesn't exist if I don't get a wand and try it? I'm going to put this away now because I'm a big nerd. I wish I hadn't done that. But that's the joys of doing this live. No editing. But that was where I learned a lot about magic. You know, I've seen card tricks and the shows on TV. But I always loved these shows where the guy was showing you how it was done. But for some reason, every time when you find out how a magic trick is done, it ruins a trick. So every time I was trying to figure out how the magic happened, I was actually ruining it for myself. I would say, oh, hey, I know how he did that. The card's up his sleeve. Oh, he's actually got a string that goes around from one. My quest for knowledge, when it came to things I couldn't understand, ruined the mystery of magic for me. And now tonight, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I want to ruin the mystery of magic. Because Jesus did some magic tricks. He did some really amazing stuff. And at the end, I'm going to tell you how it was all done. So, there was a lot of things that were done that would be considered miracles. So I picked out just a handful of examples of Jesus performing these magic tricks. And the first one I came with was in the book of Luke, and it's basically when he was out gathering his crew, getting his disciples together, gathering his people. He was out on the shores, and there was these guys out fishing. They'd been there fishing all day, and they had not caught a single fish. Now, mind you, when your livelihood depends on being a fisherman, you got to catch fish. Otherwise, you just spent all day working for nothing. You don't get paid if you don't catch fish. And these three guys were out on their boats fishing, and they hadn't caught anything yet. They needed something before they went back in. And Jesus sees them out there on the lake. So he's like, hey guys, throw your nets over the other side of the boat. Now, I don't know entirely how big boats were back in biblical times, but I see this like little fishing boat like we grew up with, little 15 horsepower Mercury outboard in the back, and it's maybe 6 feet wide. The difference from one side of this boat to the other should not make a difference on where the fish are. So here's these fishermen. This is what they do for a living. Some guy's yelling from shore, hey, you're fishing on the wrong side of the boat. What? Fish on the other side of the boat. Well, they were probably pretty desperate. It had been a long day. So they take their nets and they throw to the other side of the boat. And as they're reeling in their nets, something is wrong. These nets are not coming back in like they're supposed to. It's playing tug of war with them, and they are struggling like something's not right. These guys are professional fishermen. This is what they do, and they are struggling with this. And as they get it up close and they finally get these nets, their nets have never been this full before. In all their lives as fishermen, they have never caught this many fish. They pull this net up onto the boat, and it's too heavy. The boat starts to sink. Other boats have to come zipping in, zip on in, grab their boats, and help unload their load, because they're going to sink the boat with all these fish. They get onto the shore, and it's just like, dude, how did you know? Come with me, and I will make you fishers of men. That's what he told them. Jesus performed a miracle that day. He did a magic trick to show these guys his power. They were fishing on their side of the boat. He says, no, fish on the other side. And they caught more fish than they had ever caught before. And so they joined him. And they were his inner circle. Another miracle God did, again, boats, water. For some reason, despite my irrational fear of water, most of the miracles I found tonight had to do with water, but that's okay. This one gets me. This one's from the book of Mark, and God's got his posse. He's got his disciples. They're out. They're doing their thing. They go and they preach. They're bringing people to the Lord. And nightfall, they got to get across to the other side of this lake, so they hop in their boats. And they are setting sail. Well, a storm kicked up. Now, mind you, these guys, majority of them were professional fishermen. Now they're disciples. But these guys know how to handle themselves on the water. And this storm is bad news. Like, really, really bad news. Like, they are freaking out. Now, I'm guessing these guys have seen some pretty rough stuff. But this is, like, we're not going to get through this storm. One of the guys, they're finally, the boat's rocking, waves are coming over, they're trying to bail out the boat, they're freaking out. One of the guys finally looks down. Jesus is just down below deck, just chilling, having a nice little nap. And he goes down there, he's like, Jesus, we are in a storm. Don't you care if we drowned? Jesus wakes up, he's like, whatever. Comes up to the top of the deck. Hey, wind, it's enough, stop it. And just like that, the wind stops. Jesus looks at his disciples and he's like, man, what are you guys so afraid of? Why is it so hard for you to believe? Looks at them, pats him on the shoulder, goes back down, goes to bed. Now these dudes, they're sitting here. 30 seconds ago, they were fighting for their lives. Then Jesus comes up and he's like, hey, wind, that's enough, stop it. And the wind stops. The waves settle. And all of a sudden they're on calm waters. Just like that. Jesus performed a pretty crazy magic trick. Now they're all standing there, they got all the ropes and they're all freaking out. It's like, dude, who is this guy? I mean, like, seriously, he just told the wind what to do, and the wind obeyed him. Right? I guess I don't need these anymore. They go back to sailing themselves across the lake. But just like that, God stopped the storm. Hardly even had to wake up. If I keep going through, Jesus and his guys, they're doing their thing. They're preaching, they're teaching. People are coming from everywhere. Now, these ones I'm going to go through quickly because we just talked about these recently, but there was a time when 5,000 people came to hear God speak. They didn't have enough food to feed everybody. That's a huge concert. I mean, last time I saw 5,000 people, there were food vendors everywhere. There was tons of stuff to accommodate that many people. But I don't know where these 5,000 people gather, and the disciples are like, God, Jesus, how do we feed these people? Like, what do you mean? Like, there's all these people. How are we going to feed them? And this kid shows up, and he's got 5 loaves of fish. He's got some fish and some bread, and can't numbers right now. He's got some fish and some bread. Go back and watch it on the other video. It was better. But he gives it to God and says, hey, here, feed him with this. And so he does. God takes the bread, and he takes the fish from this kid, and he starts divvying it out into baskets so they can disperse it. One for you, one for you, one for you, one for you, one for you. And he keeps on going. And for some reason, he's not running out of fish and bread. Everyone knows what he started with. But he fed 5,000 people with this small amount of fish and bread. It's a magic trick. That's a miracle that Jesus did. Later on that very night, the boys is out in their boat again. Storm comes again. Guys are starting to freak out a little bit. They go to get Jesus, and he's not there. They start looking around, trying to figure, dude, where'd Jesus go? And then they see him. He's out for a stroll, just walking along the waves. I'm not going to say what happens next, but it was a good story. Jesus was out walking on the water. How? Why? It was a miracle. It was a magic trick. If we go a little further, I'm going to hop into one. This is the one I want to focus on. This is from Mark 11. I'm going to paraphrase here for a bit, and then I'll hop into the nitty-gritties. So, this is when Jesus cursed a fig tree. Now, mind you, Jesus was out. He was doing his tour. Him and the disciples, they're out. They're traveling. They're preaching, teaching. They're doing their thing. And they're walking towards the city and its temple. And there's this fig tree. And Jesus is like, dude, I'm down for a fig. And he walks up to this fig tree, but there's no figs on it. It's not fig tree season. And he's just annoyed because he wanted a fig and there wasn't one. So he curses this tree. He puts a legit curse on a tree because it did not have the fruit that he wanted. He goes into the town, finds the temple, and one of my favorite stories takes place because Jesus loses his cool. He gets pretty pissed off and he smashes this place up. The temples were selling dumb things. They were exchanging money. Oh, no, your money's no good here. You have to buy these coins to give as an offering. And they were just doing dumb stuff to try and turn a profit, all in the name of God. I mean, he goes on, he's flipping tables, he's smashing chairs. Jesus ain't having it. And he literally says, is it not written that my house will be a house of prayer for all nations? But you have made this a den of robbers. Jesus was big mad. He was big mad at these guys. He chased them all away. Now that's the story everybody knows. What they don't know is about that tree. See, Jesus went to that tree wanting fruit, and there was none. Jesus went to that temple and saw how corrupt it had become, and he struck out. And he lashed out against the money changers and the people selling their little buy this, go to heaven for free cards. He got angry. Just like he got angry with that tree. But now here's the kicker. The next day, they were getting ready to leave and move on, and they walked by that tree. And the tree had withered up and died. One day later. Not even probably a full day. They probably rolled in mid-afternoon. It was morning. Jesus laid a curse upon that tree, and that tree withered up and it died. I've seen how long it takes for a dead tree to show signs of life, or show signs that it was dead. We live in the Black Hills. We've got forests out here. I've seen living trees and I've seen dead trees. But I've never seen a tree shrivel up and die within a day. No. The trees I've seen that are dead, they were dead and dying 5-10 years ago before I even realized it. And the disciples were a little startled because, again, Jesus just performed a pretty crazy magic trick. Jesus just performed a miracle in destroying a tree. But it was there to prove a point. Now this is the part, what Jesus said to disciples next. I'm going to have Geek put this in chat. This was Mark 11, verse 23 and 24. Now the disciples were questioning what had just happened. And he said, "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their hearts, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." That's how Jesus did the magic tricks. He tells us to do it. He tells us blatantly how he performed these miracles. He spells it out right there. If you go and tell that mountain to jump into that lake, and you do not doubt the Lord and truly believe that he can do it, it's going to happen. He tells us right there how to pray. He tells us right there about faith. I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. So why don't we see this anymore? Why don't we see these miracles? We have doubt. We are weak. Jesus cheated. He knew God. He knows God. He has seen what God can do. We just have to believe in it. How much I would love to go outside and tell a mountain to move. I know that God could do it. I'm certain of it. I built my life around faith in this guy. My problem isn't that I doubt what God is capable of. My problem is that I doubt whether it's important enough to do it for me. Do I believe God could move a mountain? Certainly. Do I believe I'm worth Him doing it for me just to prove a point? I have doubts. Not in the Lord. I would never doubt my God. But I don't see the importance of Him having to prove it to me. And when I pray because there's more important things He should be doing. I can think of so many more people that need more than I do. That's where my doubt comes from. I believe God could do anything I ask of Him. I know He could do anything if I asked it. If I asked the Lord to help me win the lottery, He could do it for me. But inside I doubt in myself because it's such a selfish prayer. And that's my weakness. I doubt my value. But I have prayed for people before, for others. And I have seen miracles. I have seen prayers answered. Because I know God has all the power. He can do anything. And if you believe that, if you can truly sit there and say, yes, I believe that God could answer any prayer, He will. He can. He does. This was supposed to be the easy one tonight. I know a lot of us have things to pray for. A month ago, we devoted over an hour just praying for people. And God has the power if you believe. God can do those magic tricks. God can do those miracles. If he said he'd move a mountain for us, moving a mountain is not simple. Imagine what he could do with these simple things we pray for. When I'm on my way to work and I pray for an easy day. When my hand hurts and I pray for healing. Imagine what God could do if we stopped doubting and just believed.
God can do the impossible. Only if you believe. He specializes